Hello and welcome. It is the end of the 7th day of February 2019. My name is Derek. Welcome to the Money Charts channel. All bets, trades of the like within each his own risk and their own reward. I'm mainly going to be focusing on NLC2 amongst this video. But to start off within Bitcoin, looking at many candles on the daily term or going back over a half a year from the late June period, seeing the support at 6100 ultimately fail, at least for the intermediate, not really long term, the intermediate term fail on the middle of November, or in the middle of November. Since then, it's just been grinding its way lower from its last correctionary move. And within such, as I scroll to shorter periods, the session on the 7th had a high of 33.83, a low of 33.50. That's barely, if even, that of a percent. It's not even that. I got a differential in my head just calculating 33.29. And for I need 33.5 because I take the differential divided by the low. So microscopically, yeah, it's 1%. Today's session so far, only 4 hours in, high of 65, a low of 38. So that's a differential of like 27 and change. So almost 1%, but it's grinding and just staying within the extreme low levels set on January the 28th in the single hour term time frame. A little bit of a failed breakdown sell in the short term, at least the potential for such. It's almost like this is like a fake move, although any buy orders obviously happened. And it's just doing what it was doing before that event happened, which was just supporting this level and resisting up here. So it's just doing a whole bunch of nothing. It's had this down move, of course, on February the 7th, and it's pretty much resisting this area where it's supported. So that's Bitcoin. Moving on to Vertcoin, which this is the hour chart, daily term, having this move today, which went up to near 11,000, or a little above it rather, has pulled back to where it came from. And it came from here, January 3rd and 5th, or 4th, at the area of about 8,200 where it resisted in here. And it was also the area from the early part of December. Hasn't came deep into it, which is like 7,800. And it's interesting because I stated this morning, after selling near the 10 number, that I'm looking to buy barely above the 8 here. So I haven't bought yet. It didn't trigger a buy order. If I wanted to be more aggressive, I would probably go closer to 76-ish area in here. It looks as if it's going to... It's either this. It's either it's going to pull back to here, or this thing is going to break out so beautifully from this move and then start testing some of these upper areas. So 15, 16 area would be like the next level of resistance. So I got a long ways to go. I'm done with Vertcoin for this video. And AID, if you're watching this, is like watching the grass grow, meaning if you're watching this bullish setup of magnificent proportions. I mean, I really should put a good buy size order in and just sell big when it goes up. Put a stop down here, all that. Well, I technically can't. It just seems as if this thing is ready to pop for a good leg higher. Weekly term time frame, there's nothing on this chart other than this. It's just going to be that. Yeah, there's nothing more to it. But where did it come from that I can at least see? What's this area in here? 1,700. It had a resistance point at 26 in the start of the summer of last year. But it looks ready to pop. Next one is NLC2. And this one I've been thinking for a while. I mean, I really should be more aggressive within this coin. And I'm pretty aggressive in it as it is already. I'm going to talk more about its entirety after I finish off these charts on TradingView. But I love how this goes up and down like this. It's just great for trading. And by having more, I can trade on so many levels. And when I say levels, short term, intermediate term, long term, all of those points of view. So I'll trade a little bit short term and then long term. And when I mean short term, I'd be thinking like, say now, I would be using the like a single hour time frame. Okay, breakout to about like say here 375 I'm going to sell, and it comes back to 330 I'm buying. stuff like that. That's short term. And then intermediate term situations where, and I'll use the daily for this. Maybe I'm looking to sell here at around, say, 400. Look to buy this back at, say, 310. And then more longer term, oh, this goes up to, like, say, 1,000 Satoshi, 1,200. Let's sell a decent amount and look to buy it back when it goes to maybe 400. Because these things go up big, they go down big, and that's how I like it. Okay. So then, what I like about these short-term moves amongst this market, you had, after this sideways consolidation, a magnificent rally, correctionary sell-off, which supported this general area in here, resisting in here as well. So it had a lot of congestion, I guess around 300. 300 was a key area. And the range would have been from 270 up to about 330. And then you have this selling on extreme volume. Oftentimes from failed moves in up one direction can create fast moves in the opposite. And I'd have to say that usually at least, you got to think to me, I think it's going to at least on this move come to this point here. And as a trader, I don't care what happens. If it either goes up for a big leg or it goes down. I would prefer a leg lower, come back down in here, fill in some of my buy orders. And also I'm thinking as a trader too, I look at the price as it is now, both against Bitcoin and that against the dollar. And I'm going to put the dollar charts up momentarily. As they're low, 340 Satoshi. Well, I got into this originally in 2017 when it was like 1,700 Satoshi, and I could have got better around 12 or 1,400 had I tried to get better prices. And then it goes up to 5 digits, over 10,000 Satoshi, over 50 cents. It was just magnificent, and a lot of profit on the trade. And now it's at these low levels. So to think that it's a good time, bad time to buy, I hate thinking, oh man, I'm gonna buy so big that it just goes down to 240. I'm like, well, I knew it was just gonna go down and have a correctionary move. Especially, what happens if Bitcoin goes to 2,400, 2,200? What's this gonna do? Is this gonna skyrocket higher? Maybe, but unlikely. And it would thus make my decision, if it goes much lower, easier if it does such, because that's, well, first my buy orders from what I've been selling recently will hit, which is spectacular, because for every 100 or whatever I sell, 1,000 whatever I sell, I'm getting back 30, 40, 50% more, 20% more, depending on if it's an intermediate term or a shorter term trade. And that's just magnificent to have happen. So selling 100, getting back 120, getting back 130, getting back 110, getting back 140 per, and doing it multiple trades over, because there's a lot of buy orders that I need to have filled when the market goes straight up like this. You can't always, in a move, get days like this where you go up to, like, say 293 and then retrace back down to 206, thus getting some of your sell orders back. So it's very nice to say, oh, I'll sell, like, say 750 here, buy back, say 875 or something like that, or 920. I just enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But I like how it's holding this move so far. And especially if it can hold this little area here, this little shorter term area for where it came from, I think that would be just spectacular. We can see this resistance area around 293 and even deep down to 268 for that matter. And this little area 300 and a good pierce below, if it can hold there, that is just magnificent towards such. Let's now take a look at this against the US dollar, and then I'm going to talk about its case uses as well. And there's a lot of profit available within such. I'm going to talk about that as well. And within the US, 0.0117, so 1.17 cents against the US dollar. It was down to 5.8, even 5.5. Yeah, 5.5. It went below it. 5.4 cents on Bittrex. It has retraced about 61.8% approximately And because I'm just a mathematical person, I want to see. So we got it high. We'll use a term of 1718.5. And then for this one here, we'll use a low of 540.7 into my calculator, which tells me it's 1.105 cents with 76.4 coming in that of 1.3 cents, and a Fibonacci upside target in at about 3.5 cents. And that's important because I think it's most certainly a situation I'm looking for a move higher, a correctionary move. So 1.1 cents is most certainly the area where it's congesting at this current time frame. Okay, so what else do we see on this? There's only so much data. You're going to see a grinding lower when we look at this via, say, that of the weekly term time frame, and I guess it'd be better to use the daily and scrolling it, but it showed a good within the 18 how it works. But trend lines, so easy to draw. But there's only so much data because they got on this exchange in the summer of last year, which is a big step right now, especially with what's going on with Cryptopia. And hopefully myself and everyone else included who has coins on there will get them back, because I do have a few NLC on there, probably even about close to 10% of what I own. So I would definitely like to get them back. I think I will, but I might unfortunately have to wait a while. And of course there's no guarantees, and that's what's an unfortunate part about the game, if you will, of trading. Anyway, throwing that part aside, let's take a look at this since its beginning. And this is its chart here, so let's just make it so we can see the scaling all fine and dandy. You can see the price, albeit not that large of a font. So the trend line's simple. It obviously, it's in a downtrend, and it has been since these highs. I first heard about this coin back in here in the summer of 2017. I was told randomly on my comments, it's like, hey man, this thing's gonna go. So I ended up buying just a little bit of it, and it went up. Obviously, I mean, I said I could have bought down here at this low. I ended up buying probably, I think, at this high up here maybe, and it had a good gain. But the buy here was what, 4 cents, and you can't see the high, but it got to like well over 50 cents. So it had a spectacular move from where it came from. And there was a lot of arbitraging available opportunities, at least when this breakout happened. On the day of that breakout, when this happened here, I was able to get one amazing move where I was able to buy and sell amongst different exchanges for like a 30-40% return instantly. It was so magnificent. And then the buy low, sell high strategy amongst all these high points, getting completely out of the coin before it fell. Now, as it turned out, I really had a problem with the actual fantasy site when this was going on. I was wondering, how is this thing actually going up and staying up? I really wasn't understanding such for so long. I couldn't figure it out. And that was because I tried to fill a fantasy lineup, because this is what this coin can be used for, and that's what its intent is, that to play fantasy football, hockey, although they don't have it right now, basketball, soccer, baseball, all those games. And I tried putting lineups in. It just seemed like the page was, I couldn't understand it too well, and I'm like, okay, well, the market's at least working, so I'm just going to keep trading it like I did. And then the decline happened. Then came last summer, where they introduced that of poker. And they actually gave away one seat to the World Series of Poker. The buy-in for that was 10 grand, plus the costs to give them transportation, to get there, hotel, all those types of little bit of gadgets as well. And they gave away a seat. And as an investor, I hope that a participant from this site makes it to the World Series of Poker. I'll be cheering for Johnny Chan next year, because he's an ambassador for it. and that would just make this coin skyrocket. But throwing those parts aside, to me, I'm just seeing a company that wants to get it done, and they're investing in things of this nature. They're investing in an overlay. I'm going to get into that near the end of this video, or after I'm done the analysis, so momentarily, really. So they're wanting to get things going, and I really, really do like how that's in play. So again, we look at these trend lines. That's in play. And all this type of stuff as well. But what has been going on is another correctionary move that's done better than all of the ones that preceded it. For preceding such was, at least in the downtrend, I mean, this was a nothing rally. I mean, what kind of rally was this? This was time in here. This decent rally, and I'm just going to say barely decent at anything, didn't do anything. There was a time rally in here, and then this one, just this tiny one here, didn't do much. But since then, this was the best one so far, this one in here. A little bit of a nice correctionary move, and it's holding it thus far, but it's not reverting the trend to a negative one. Moreover, it's neutralizing it. You get these layers of resistance it's got to get by, and all these sort of things to get it going on the long term. But as I look at this, I say to myself, what would the price of this coin be on the key numbers? Like, say, 2,400 Bitcoin, $1,000 Bitcoin, and let's do $7,500 Bitcoin, 20K Bitcoin, and say $75,000 Bitcoin. Generally speaking, altcoins do worse within the Bitcoin conditions. So there, you would think if Bitcoin's going to go to 24, it would have to go right now from 34 to 24, lose a good 1/3 of its value. And in this case here, it's going to easily lose at least half of its value, if not significantly lower. It was at about a half a penny. It might even go to about a third. And who knows how it gets to 1,000. Because 1,000 I hope doesn't happen. If it does, it does. It's the must hold area. And I would expect a lot of sharp moves maybe in this type of format. But there's a good chance it could be relatively extremely cheap. And I realize if it does come to this point, this is just magnificent for me as a trader, and that long term I could accumulate a lot of these coins and get them really cheap. But that's, of course, if that happens. At some point, Bitcoin's just going to go. We may not see those lower Bitcoin prices. We may not. I'm just going to let it play as it is. But at 7,500, that means we'd be seeing Bitcoin do better than double. And this is a spot where if we're at like 1.1, we could be talking about 5.5, 7.7 cents in here. 20,000, which would be previous highs for Bitcoin, which is why I chose this number. Well, previous highs for the other coin got over 50 cents. And I wouldn't be surprised if it could do the same thing. And then when you talk about 75,000 and above, well, now we could be talking in the multiple dollars for this coin. And when you look at how this is set up as a fantasy site. I'm not going to say they can get as big as sites like DraftKings and FanDuel, but how big of a market share would those companies be at? Right now, the market cap for this is not that high. So therefore, I would have to think that it's most reasonably not a surprise that if this is a surviving, or a company that can survive these days in crypto space during this bear market, that they can most certainly flourish very well during great times, because that's what we see in these markets. Bad times, good times. The bear market has been well over a year in play. And I do believe a bull market's going to come in, and these types of altcoins can do well. So as far as what it can do, I like their team is on the webpage. I've heard good things about the CEO. Really passionate about the site. Having, like I mentioned, Johnny Chan is an ambassador. Having a free roll to be able to play with him. So or meet with him, that was. But speaking more about their site, and amongst their site in poker, no rake, none. Which means you play a cash game. If I go all in against you or you go all in against somebody else, you put up 500 of the chips, they put up 500. Not counting everything else in the pot, there's 1,000 in there. And there's no taking away chips like you would at a online casino or a real casino. So that it makes it so the average person has a zero ROI. Players who have got an advantage, even if it's just a small one, will still have it, because if you're playing on traditional sites with rake, you got to have an intermediate to moderate advantage just to break even. And this, you have to be the average player just to break even. It's a little difficult to get into games, but they have very good tournaments available every single day at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Especially on Sunday would be the biggest one. For how it works, it's 2,000 chips, so the equivalency of a little over $20. But you know what? It's over $60 minimum, because it's a rebuy add-on, and I have to have 2 buys, and then add-on, I have to put that on, all that type of stuff. But it's a decent sized game. That's the whole point of it. And there's good size ones, a little smaller on Saturday and Friday and Thursday, and there's different games. Thursday is Omaha, just to have good games. And then cash games sometimes are not available, so it's a small site, but you're playing the early stages of these things, so penny stocks that become dollar stocks. These are the early looks of those sites. And in fantasy, it's overlay city. Overlay means that they don't get enough participants where the players profit. So therefore, what they will have is, say in the NBA, they have 100 chip buy-in games, so the equivalency of like $1.10 US. And there's 100 participants. They pay out like 950 chips, or 9,500 rather. Well, 100 multiply 100 is 10,000. So all they're looking to take is 500 chips, or a 5% rake, much lower than the industry standard. But right now, these numbers aren't filling up too high. There's about 62 to 68 in a lot of games. Sometimes it might get set to 70. Sometimes it barely gets over 50. But every single day, there's return on investment advantages. Now, the average player has about a 30% return almost every single day on average. But your skill level, or lack thereof, will make that number go higher or lower. And then they have games with 500 chips, so a bit more expensive, about $5.50. And it is for 50 people, where they have about 23 3/4 of payout. It works out to 95% again. And within such, that means there's profit again. Though their games are 35, 37, 40 even. Not often does it get to 40, although it did get pretty high last time. But even if it does get to 40, it becomes a very good overlay. They need 48 people out of the 50 just for the house, if you will, to have profit on the game. They also have free rolls every single day amongst that site as well. So the case use is very good. Another reason why I should be really playing for a bigger stake, because what I did is I on the poker site today, I went into a bit bigger of a game, stakes that I'd crushed back in the day, meaning I played buy-in for anywhere between 500 to 1,000 US dollars I would put on the table at any time. So I put in the equivalency of just like 4,000 chips, which is like $40 or 44, whatever. And I played a few hands, and I'm thinking, you know what? Although I did respect the player being very good, I really didn't feel too much like playing. I just thought, oh, I'll wait for another day. And that's the reason why I should have a higher bankroll of these coins. So I'm still not sure what I'm going to do short term. In that, do I buy more in this area here? Do I wait for a price correctionary move, 8.5 cents? Well, I'm definitely buying a bit more at that stage, but as far as a very aggressive stage, because as market is concerned, when you're talking about these short-term moves going to 3.5 cents and 2 cents and even 5 and 20 cents, not so much 20 though, then you're talking about how cheap these prices are if it does become that of an amazing company and an amazing coin where you're talking $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 per coin. And the games, like I mentioned, 100 chips and 50 chips, or 100 and 500 coins to buy. Well, how much would those be worth if we're talking 20 cent and 50 cent and $10 prices? Which tells me two things about their games I'm looking at. Number one, the size of the games, 100 and 500 chips. Well, if the prices go up to like say 20, like even 10 cents a coin, well, that would now be a $10 and $50 game. So you might see games where they might go 10 and 50, or 20 and 100. You'll see the entry size levels decrease as the price is going up, and I can only presume that that's been happening all the way through, because I've only been back in the game for no limit coins since, well, late November, or before that move happened to the upside. And then I don't know how the games were before, back say when the coin was much higher in price. Did they have the lower prices? I would presume so. Also, as far as the games filling up, if these games fill up with several minutes to go, then they're going to have no choice but to increase entry size. I want to see 200, 500, 1,000 players playing this game, because that tells me that the coin is becoming very successful, and they're going to have no choice but to increase it. So that is an overall good thing. So I would notice if I start to see, oh, the overlays aren't working anymore, or they're definitely nowhere near as good, just even before then, where we're getting 50 out of 50 on the 500, and we're getting even 100 out of 100 on the 100 game. Well, you're going to notice, oh, wait a second, there's now 75 spots available on the 500. And the prize pools went up accordingly with it. And now 150 people can play in the 100 game. And same thing again with the prize pool. That's, I think, what they're doing. I think they want the overlays right now during the low market price stages, as far as keeping the site going, keeping it alive, because I think it's going to work within Bitcoin cycles. Having Bitcoin prices at supreme prices is going to be very, very good for a lot of the case use coins, and by no means, this is by all means rather, this is definitely no exception. This is going to have probably spectacular moves. I think that's why I personally want to find ways of going more aggressive amongst this coin. They're going through a fork, they're doing just modifications within the hardware wallet. I actually downloaded this and just put a few coins in there just to see. My first one I just put a small amount in, and then I put in the a bunch more, but 4,800 minus the 0.01 fee into it. So it seems as if it's the blockchain is working. It only took about, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds to 30 seconds from the time that I confirmed the withdrawal to the time it recognized it on here. You can stake coins, which means they just give you a microscopic amount of free coins per holding them. It's like the equivalency of 4% a year. As a trader, I don't get too excited at 4% ROI for a 1-year return, but it's better than 0% when you're holding them in cold storage. And within this, this is a cold storage format for holding it. So there are 4 places you can hold No Limit Coin. You got different hardware wallets like this. You can hold it amongst the poker or fantasy sites, and or I should be saying, and then within the exchanges as well. And some people, of course, do not like that. I do not blame them. And if you're not trading on there, it's better, of course, to have them amongst this. And as a player within these games, if that's the case, oftentimes if the price goes high, I think it's a good idea to liquidate some of your NLC or coins and then sell them off in the market. Use those Bitcoins into something that you want, or look for buy orders to get in back later. Different things like that. But yes, thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a magnificent day. Bye bye.